The 22nd Sunday of Ordinary Time, we have a gospel today that has several important parts. The Pharisees have invited Jesus to dine, which forms a nice setting because Luke says they are observing everything that Jesus is doing. Observing, watching, no judging, hoping to catch him. And then Jesus turns literally the tables on the Pharisees who have invited him to dinner. He says, now you Pharisees, you love the first places and people greeting you and celebrating you. So they observe you, and you observe their honoring you. You love that. Let me tell you a little parable. There was a man who had a nice dinner, and there was a man there who put himself first. And then the man came, the host said, someone else has come, you go to the end of the table. And Jesus said, wouldn't it have been better for that man to sit at the last seat, and then his friend would come and say, come up higher. So is that a strategy for social humility? Well, humility is the key word here. The Pharisees exalt themselves, and Jesus is saying, humble yourself. And that's a very big Catholic Christian trap. What is it to humble ourselves? The whole story is about God has invited us to the table of life and to the table of eternity. And those who allow themselves to be invited, as they are, will be raised not to the first place at table, but to a higher place than just earthly execution. Now that's a context. A little etymology or word study. The word humility and humiliation and humus and humor all have the same etymological root, the Latin being the word for dirt, earth. What is humility? It is being grateful for one's humanity. Humanity, humility, humor, all go together. So human is earthly, and the divine host has invited us not to put ourselves down, but allow ourselves to be invited by Jesus to a higher experience of what life is. But the higher experience by the Pharisees was getting their esteem from what other people would say about them. Oh, Rabbi, how wonderful, you're great. Now Jesus says, humility is the truth that you are of the earth. And Jesus has come into the earth, on the earth, within our humanity, to say, this is where I will meet you. I can't meet you, Pharisees, because you are not being who you are. You're pretending. Pretending is a great word. Pre meaning before, and ten, T-E-N, is always the word for hold from Latin. So to hold something before you, pretend, hide behind. And the Pharisees, and Jesus was always saying, let me get behind your mask, your costumes, and meet you where you really are. A humble person is one who has met herself or himself and said, this is This is my earthly self. This is me. This is who I am. I am earthly. So I am not ashamed or humiliated by experiences of my being human. But the Pharisaical within us would say, oh, once you find out how human I am, I will be ashamed and you will be ashamed of me. It will be a humiliation. Literally, a humiliation is an experience of my earthliness. And our faith says it is in your earthliness that you will be met by the Jesus who came to be one of us. But one of the other words is interesting. How does humor fit into human? Most humor deals with the incongruous. A dog went into a bar and said, no, dogs don't go into bars and talk. That's funny. It's humorous. And what he might say it would be humorous. What is humorous in our experience of being human is all the ways we pretend or deny or walk away from our humanity. It is funny how you pretend. How funny it is, sad, but humorous, the costumes you wear to prevent others from knowing your humanity and your living with your humanity. So we can say I was humiliated because somebody found out that how human I was. That's, in one way, that's funny, because somebody who finds out how human we are is more likely to love us because that's our truth. And Jesus is asking his followers not to humiliate themselves, not falsely say, oh, I'm nothing. No, I'm not an angel. I'm not God. I am part of the earth into whom Jesus has come. The dwelling within my tent is the incarnation, is the humanness of Jesus. Saying, now live with your humanity. Don't cover it up. Don't act in such a funny way as to pretend you're not human. I remember my now adult nephew, when he was a little kid, he was on the third step of a house when I was visiting his parents. And he said, you know, I've got a Batman's cape and I can fly. And this is going to be humorous. I said, okay, go. And he got down to the second step and he jumped. And he crashed, which I thought was funny, but he was crying because he was ashamed because he couldn't fly. But it was humorous that he tried to fly. And he came over to me in tears and I hugged him and I said, oh, that's okay. You didn't hurt yourself. And he looked up and he says, but did you see my cape flutter? That was funny. That in the midst of his crash, he wanted to make sure that I saw his cape fluttering. He wasn't Batman. He was just my nephew. For him, it was a humiliation. For him, it was a humbling that is giving him his truth. Not putting himself down, but putting himself in a position to accept the earthliness of him as God does in Jesus. Accepts the place that we are at our true place. And he will raise us up to the divine table, which we call eternity. And so the Word of God and the Eucharist comes to us. We receive it in our human hands. And sometimes we have to face the humorous way we run away from our humanity. We are of the earth. And Jesus was born to the earth and invites us to live as humans on our way to receiving eternity, not as a gift that we earned, but a gift that he earned for us in his redemptive love, which we celebrate at the Eucharist. One final thing. See if you can find the humorous in the way you pretend. What's humorous about how you talk, how you walk? Are you walking to impress? That's the Pharisee. And the Pharisees to Jesus are kind of funny. They're humorous because they're not who they are. You might pray with how we humorously pretend that we are not human.